the Dog Witch podcast, where we help you create happy, healthy, and relaxed dogs.
Hello and welcome to the Dog Watch podcast. I'm Lisa, your host, and today I have a very special guest with me. I am so excited because I have been friends with this lovely lady for such a long time, and I have now finally managed to get her on the Dog Watch podcast. So, welcome to Cat Paterson. Hello, Cat. How are you?
Slightly nervous. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm here. And Lisa's right. Goodness, we've known one another for over a decade now. So how privileged am I to get to come on and have a conversation?
I'm so excited to have you here. We normally start off, usually I have guests with me. So we normally start off, but today we're doing this on Zoom, and we normally start off with that, what are you drinking? Just to kind of break the ice. Do you have a drink with you?
Here I have always,
Yeah.
always got a drink with me. So,
What are you drinking?
so in my mug, anybody who knows me, I am always powered by Earl Grey tea specifically. So yes, Earl Grey in my mug today.
Perfect. Well, today I have a little, it's like a kind of chamomile sort of tea, I think. It's like a sleep blend from Aldi. I picked up the wrong box and was very disappointed when I got home. But it's actually quite nice, so we'll deal with that. But moving on to business. Kat, just introduce yourself, your business, because you wear many hats. So just introduce yourself, your business, and just tell us a little bit about you.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. I wear many hats. You know, you could say not focused. I like to call it multi-passionate. So I effectively get to coach the most amazing women. I call it women who take the world by storm. So most incredible people. We're doing, business is hard, right? Business is really tough. But when you've got a cheerleader in your corner and I'm there for people's success, and when you really like yourself an awful lot, then you make more money and you attract more clients. And I mean, that makes it sound really easy, but the reality is, do you know what? If we really lean into who we are and we manage the unhinged kind of backseat driver of emotions in our life, then we just feel better about ourselves and then we show up a bit easier. So what I'm looking at the moment, and this is why I wear many hats, is I'm kind of currently deep in the trenches of the intersection between behavioral psychology, leadership, coaching, and AI, and how we merge all of them together. So what a time to be alive.
Exactly, exactly. And how did you get into this? How did it all start?
I suppose it all started with, so my background is criminal intelligence analysis. So I used to run a team, covert world, mapping serious and organised crime, looking at profiling, all of those things. And then it just seemed like a natural move. It's funny, hugely introverted. Lisa knows that, I kind of masquerade as something else when I'm out and about. But people are always like, but if you're so introverted and you do this profile thing, you must like people. And I'm like, no, I like them under the microscope. I like looking at them under the microscope. So that's how it all started. People are fascinating to me. Do I want to go out and be amongst hundreds of them? No, not really. But I like to look at them from a scientific point of view with a big, microscope and an eyeglass over them. That's my thing.
100%. That's why I work with dogs. I prefer working with the dogs than the humans. But unfortunately, as someone said to me a few months ago, dogs don't have credit cards, so you have to deal with the humans. So
That's a really good point, and that's why we do it, Lisa. That's why we do it. Like, you'd rather just have people a little bit further away. I'm sure they're lovely, but yeah.
and tell us, like, how long have you been doing this? I mean, for me, it seems like forever because I feel like I've known you forever. But
Yeah.
yeah, like when did the journey kind of start?
I would say it probably started around 2011, 2012, and then we probably met in 2013. So where are we now? 2025. So what's that? 12, 13 years, something like that. So it does feel like forever. And it's really interesting. I actually bumped into somebody I know not that long ago who I've known from two careers ago. And they're like, oh, what are you doing now? And I'm thinking, crikey, I've had two careers since, I spoke to you, but they're still in the same career. And it's just really interesting, so it's not a slate on that. It's just Yeah, and I think probably by this time in another 5 years, I'll have done something completely different again.
else. No, but that's it. It's like when we first met, like I was doing some not completely different, but I was still working with dogs, but my
Mm.
business has completely changed and it's and I think you've probably got a lot to do with that, to be honest. But in a
Sorry.
good way. In a good way. But yeah, it's funny how you just kind of evolve and change and you get really into something and you get stuck into it and all of a sudden it becomes a way of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also the other side of that is true. It's like it can become a way of life, and then but it's also okay to change it. So if who you are now and what you're doing now doesn't fit in 5 years' time, it's okay to change it.
Yeah,
It's okay to change
totally.
it, because you're right. When
Totally.
we
Oh,
start doing something different, well, it's like kind of side by side it, but actually the model change and how you want to do it changes and all that kind of stuff. So evolution.
yeah, totally, 100%. I really had no choice. As you know, my gran passed away, and that was my source of childcare. I mean, how very dare she? And I had to then recreate my business around having my kids. And I suppose as women and mums and things like that, we've got 100 million things going on in the background. So we do have to then make the businesses for ourselves. And that's where you give really good clarity. You ask the questions that nobody else maybe would ask.
I know I ask the chunchy questions, don't they? It's like I point at the elephant in the room and I call it an elephant, and then we have the discussion, don't we?
Yes, 100%. And I suppose like you can tell like just from your face and the way that you talk about your business, you're so animated about it. But what particularly do you love about it?
Do you know, it just feels it's like my life's work. And I get that that probably sounds a bit twee. So one of the things that I don't talk about it an awful lot actually, but it kind of underpins everything that I do. So when we get into a flow state, flow is that time flies like it's having fun. So for me, that's what it feels like. And that's not to say that it's not difficult sometimes, that it's not challenging sometimes. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I woke up this morning and had my usual existential crisis about, oh, maybe I'll just go and get a job. And then I remember I'm not employable and I really love what I do.
Yeah,
And it's just a minor blip and actually go out and get a bit of fresh air and have a walk and calm yourself down, do you know? So I
yeah,
think it's that flow state when I'm in that state of crikey, 3 hours have passed and I've just been deep in something. It just feels incredible. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
yeah. Yeah, I mean I think we all kind of have that, don't we? We all kind of have that stage where we go, do you know what, I'll just go and get a job. And then as you say, I go, oh, but I'd be sacked within the week. Nobody would want to employ me. It's just I don't do office politics, I can't keep my gob shut, I don't like injustice. So yeah. Plus I
Yeah,
love dogs too much. So
absolutely. You need the dogs. You need the dogs.
that's it. And is there anything that you don't like? Is there anything that really rips your knitting, as my grandmother said?
Lots of things. Lots of things. I get
Related to your
really,
business?
yes, I love that clarity. Yeah, also lots of things related to my business. I suppose it's like anything, you're never going to love it all. You're never going to love all bits of it. I also have dyscalculia, which is effectively the easiest way to describe that as number dyslexia. So when I actually say the numbers give me the fear, they actually do because they'll never make sense. It's a bit like we would never say to somebody who's dyslexic, oh well, you've just learned to read, and you're like, oh, actually, so it's the same thing with numbers. I'm never going to get to grips with that. So I procrastinate hugely around that. So that's a real source of quite high level of anxiety for me because I know deep down I know the numbers will be fine and I'm doing the thing and you pay your taxes and you do all the things. But when I don't even understand it, that can be a
Uh,
real source of anxiety, but you find ways around it and you get support. So yeah.
yeah, I think that's always the key of having a really good accountant. They know what they're talking about. I
Well,
mean,
whatever.
I have no issues, but they still speak a different language to me. So yeah, I can imagine if you do have another thing going on in the background, you'd be like, oh my God.
It's like they're suddenly like speaking in Mandarin and you're like, right, I'm never going to understand that. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
just I think we all get that. in the same shape or form, or to a lesser extent, but it's there.
It's just another challenge, isn't it? Another added
Yeah.
layer
But
to add to the fun.
yeah, and it hasn't stopped me, I wouldn't be doing this for 12, 13 years if that had stopped me. So you just find a way around it.
Yeah, 100%. And what are you working on just now? Like what kind of things? Where are you going? Tell us about the excitement.
Right. So at the moment, so I'm in this intersection with AI, leadership psychology, and um, all that behavioural change. So I've developed a tool that I've been testing over the last 2 years, and it's called Prosperity, and it gets into the subconscious level of identity, um, so that we can unlearn and undo behaviours that don't serve us. And I've been using it myself, and I solve my own problem, and it's great, and it does all my kind of analysis for me, if you like. And then September 2024, I happened to go to a female founder summit, happened to start talking about it, not with intention to, and investors were literally putting business cards into my hand. And I was like, no, no,
Amazing.
no, 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 that's not why I'm here. I'm just here to catch up with people that I know from ages ago and just have a nosy. And ever since September last year, it's been a whirlwind, so much so that I've got a place on a hackathon, which basically means I get in a room managed to secure a place. There was only 5, I think, for the whole of, is it Scotland or Glasgow, maybe, West Coast.
Wow.
And you get in a room with tech experts, proper boffins, who are potentially going to help me get this thing out of the stage it's in. So it's in its minimum viable product stage, and I now need to get it to the next stage so I can go commercial with it. And yeah, so I've got a whole day this week actually that we're talking
Oh wow.
to do that. So I'm all
Wow,
kinds
that's
of
amazing.
excited and feel a bit sick, and excited and feel a bit sick. So that's just my usual world at the moment. So yeah, it's all happening kind of quite
Wow, that
whirlwind.
sounds absolutely amazing. And you are quite a pioneer for like AI and how we should work with it and stuff. And we've had conversations. My husband's a journalist, so he's kind of panicking that all these robots are going to take over his world. And you'll actually be so proud because I've converted him. We did a little test of it last week because I'm like, right, okay, cool. Let's do a test. Let's put this through ChatGPT and see if it could be you. And we did do that and it was rubbish. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like, so the world is still always going to need me. But he's actually like using it to his advantage. He started like playing about with it and writing short stories and stuff, and is so it's not something to be afraid of.
No, I think, I mean, it's always going to be Marmite, but people have been likened it to the kind of the time of the Industrial Revolution. And then I heard somebody else actually say not that. It's nearer splitting the atom. So I think we've got to pay attention. But my guiding principle is, and it is interesting when I've been having the conversations about what I've been building. It's built from a place of how do we keep the human element at its absolute
Yeah,
core, and how do we do it ethically? Because there's lots of noise about AI, there's lots of really negative points about AI, there's lots of debate around how it was trained and how that's inappropriate and how it will maybe challenge, copyright and plagiarism and all these other things. But the one true fact is it's not going away. So actually, how can journalists use it to their
yeah,
advantage rather than thinking that's going to take my job? Actually, how can I use that to leverage what I do
uh,
and personalization at scale? So I think when we reframe it and flip it, it becomes a
yeah,
different
totally.
thing. Tool
Yeah.
to our advantage.
100%. I mean, like, that's kind of like the conversations that we had, and now my husband's had the realization of, oh yeah, this could be my friend. So that's kind of it. And I suppose as well, like we've all had the kind of playabouts where we've done like the wee challenges. Like I put in like the picture of Zach, my dog, and got it to create a human version of it, and I showed people it, and they were like, your dog's more handsome than that. And then the kids were like, he looks like a Spanish football, that kind of thing. So It's fun. It's a good
Yeah.
things to play about with, and I've certainly found a difference with helping it with my business. And sometimes you fall out with it, it tells fibs, and you're like, we fell out majorly last week because it was kind of like, that's not what I'm asking you to do. Come on, you know this stuff.
Yeah, it's a tool to
So
be used, and why would we not? And I think that's it. If we can get ahead of just feeling comfortable with logging into something and looking at it, then we're going to be strides ahead. And obviously, you've got kids, people have got kids. Their generation is not going to know anything different. They're going to grow up
yeah,
with it. So actually, I think for parents as well, getting ahead of that, and in terms of business, you're only doing yourself a favour.
100%, 100%. So kind of well, talking about like AI dogs and things like that, we'll kind of lead into the next bit of the chat. And although your name does suggest that you are much more a cat person, but you have a very interesting take with dogs, although you don't have a dog. Tell us about how dogs fit into your life.
So yeah, cat by name, cat by nature, and I have cats. But the reality is, it's really interesting to me that people always say, "Oh yeah, cat person or a dog person." I'm like, neither. I'm an animal person because I
Yeah.
grew up having hamsters, and then because I wasn't allowed a bigger animal, that was the reality. And then when I married my husband, he had two cats already. So then, so he was actually the cat person, and I got to have cats, and then I've never looked back. But I've always loved dogs. But for us, our the way we run our lives, and my husband also runs his own business, it just didn't fit with our lifestyle. And for us personally, it was going to be too tiring. But my husband also grew up with a dog. So he was wee, he always had dogs. So he's always like, oh, will we get a dog at some point? And we did talk about it, but we always thought, actually, whilst we're still moving about and like to travel, that's probably not going to suit our lifestyles, whereas cats fit easier into that. So
Yeah.
what we discovered about a decade ago was a place that we could do pet sitting. And
Amazing.
that's what we do. We've built up lots of relationships with lots of different pet owners. We get to go to France and stay there for a month to look after two cats while somebody comes here and looks after ours. But we get long weekends away where we go to lovely little bits in Scotland, so long weekends, and we look after other people's dogs. And we get the best
That's
of both
amazing.
worlds. So we
It is,
get
it
to,
totally is. Yes.
so we get to pretend that we've got a dog for the weekend. The person gets somebody to look after them really well, and we get to go and play fetch and run about like loonies on grass and up the beach and everything else, and pretend that we've got.
But that's brilliant as well for the dogs because it's just like that. It's like for animals, yes, they're here.
Absolutely. So it's a win-win. It means we never then feel we need to have the conversation at the moment about are we going to get a dog? So that'll probably be later on, maybe if we retire or something. But we get the best of both worlds.
It's just brilliant. It's so exciting. I just think that it's because like we've always had dogs. Like Grant was never really a dog person. Not he wasn't a dog person. He just like you. He'd never had pets. He was never allowed anything other than a goldfish. So when we moved in together, it was just like I really wanted a dog because I'd always had one, and he was just like no. And then we adopted Ziggy, who he was huge. Like he was the size of a small horse, and like the bond that he created with Ziggy was just beautiful. And then we added Zane, who was so far removed from Ziggy. It was like, where you have like an angel and then you just have the total batshit one. That was Zane. And then we've kind of added Zach into that. So like for us, like having people I mean, we're really lucky we've got family and friends that can help look after him, but just having that knowledge of knowing that someone really trustworthy and responsible is coming to look after your baby, that's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
And that's it. It's like, we've really built trust with people because we always come at it from a place of we know what it's like to have animals and leave them in the trust of somebody else. Um, they're always saying, "Oh, the dog will be fine," and I'm like, "No, no, that's not the point. The point is, how do you want the dog to be treated? One, I don't want to break your dog while you're away. I don't want anything to happen to it, but actually, I'm also respectful of the fact that dogs are quite loyal to one owner. So you've got to respect that. And actually, where do you fit into that? And how do you make sure that the dog is well cared for. Their routine isn't disrupted too much, in terms of when they eat and when you take them out, because I understand that that's all really important. Um, and then you get the fun stuff, So we've been really lucky that we've built great trust with owners who were always the first port of call. You get the message, right, I'm thinking about going away. Are you guys about first before I ask anybody else? So it's lovely. So we get to go to, lovely people's houses and pretend we're away for a long weekend. And we just get the fun of having the dog, waking you up and licking your face in the morning, which we wouldn't normally. And normally I've got 2 cats sitting at me at 5 o'clock in the morning, slapping me in the face. So instead you get a dog doing that. So it's just good fun.
Brilliant, because I think the trust kind of element is so this as well, like we've been able to trust you with the emotion and the business and everything else that comes with it is huge. And I suppose like kind of going back to business, that's what you do. You kind of hold space and provide that trust there. I always say you're like the big sister that I didn't have.
That's it, isn't it? It's like if you treat people or pets or people's homes with respect, you can't really go far wrong. And the bottom line is, um, animals make the decision. I don't choose.
Oh,
The
100%.
the dogs decide whether you're getting invited back. And and what's really lovely is they now recognise. You always think, oh, maybe they won't know us. And as soon as we arrive, they're like, oh, you're back. This is amazing. And they actually, there's one dog in particular that actually takes us on the walk because it knows where we like to go and it knows where it likes. So we were just like, right, okay, we'll follow. Where are we going today? So we've built that kind of relationship and it's just joyous.
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And what I would like to do is just ask you, where can people get hold of you? Like, what's obviously not for dog walking, for your business. Um, where where can people find you? Where can the listeners come to find out more about you, more about what you do and your business and stuff?
Yeah, so probably I've got a website. So I'm catpaterson.com if you want to look on the website. I'm on Instagram as at Cat Paterson STG, and the STG is my other pseudonym of Straight Talking Ginger, which is why people are always like, why have you got STG? Because Lisa knows me as originally Straight Talking Ginger, who's another bit of my business. And then I kind of hang around a lot on LinkedIn from that professional, because a lot of what I'm doing in that AI intersection leadership at the moment, it's like it's real adulty stuff, I always like to call it. So there's a bit on LinkedIn, so come connect with me on LinkedIn. So they are the 3 main places that I hang about.
Perfect. And when I put this podcast out, I will share some links to you as well. But I think that's a really good place just to kind of wrap up.
Yeah,
But thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, take care. Thank you.
brilliant.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of the Dog Witch podcast. Don't forget to tune in to our next episode soon.